Shiloh season, chapter 4. Dad come by in the Jeep next morning to take me home. 6 days a week he picks up the mail in Sistersville for 280 families. And after he delivers that, he picks up the mail for 360 more outside of Friendly. We don't go directly home, of course. I gotta wait a while. He stops at every mailbox between David's house and ours. Could have walked it, but I like to open boxes for Dad. Stuff the mail in. What I like most, though, is finding a loaf of banana bread or half an apple pie that folks sometimes leave in their boxes for Dad. People like my dad, because he delivers their mail no matter what. Can be 7 o'clock in the evening, snowing like you wouldn't believe, but Dad'll be out there in his Jeep getting that mail through. Soon as I slide on the seat beside him, though, and we give the mail to David Howard, I ask, "Shiloh's okay?" Dad's moving the Jeep on to the next house. "Looked fine to me this morning," he says. "Why?" "Just wondering," I tell him. "You have a good time with David?" "Oh, sure, I always do." I'm looking forward to Mrs. Ellison's box, which is coming up soon, because she leaves a piece of cake for Dad almost every day. And sure enough, I reach my hand in her box and pull out a loaf wrapped in foil, and my mouth's watering already. Then I read the label she put on it. "Zucchini bread," she says. It says. "Why'd she have to ruin it?" I say. "Who would put squash in a cake loaf?" Dad just chuckles. "You take a bite of that and you won't even notice," he says. But I figure I can last the morning on the pecan waffles Mrs. Howard made for our breakfast. I get the mail going for the next box. "Did you know there were 2 Denvers in West Virginia?" I say. "Wouldn't surprise me if there were even a couple more," Dad says. "How can there be 2 places named the same in one state? If you don't incorporate, you can call a place most anything you want. We could call our own place Denver if we wanted. Could we call it New York City or Chicago? Except you could. Postmasters down in Friendly would have a laughing fit, that's all," says Dad. Expect you could, I'm sorry. After I put the mail in Mrs. Ellison's box and turn up the red flag on the side so she can see it, that she's got mail, I ask, "Dad, what happened to Judd last Saturday when you went over?" Dad gives a sigh. "Let's just say that Judd wasn't himself, Marty. He was drinking again, wasn't he?" "He's been drinking some, yes." "Did he say he's been hunting up in our woods?" Conversation didn't exactly go the way I'd planned. "So what'd he say?" "Oh, he rambled on about how you took the best hunting dog he ever had." "Just nonsense, Marty." I can feel my chest tighten, though. It was one thing I didn't want to hear. "I earned that dog fair and square," I say. "Of course you did. Judd just was jawing again. But I don't want you and Becky and Darylyn up in those woods till I get this settled. Don't want you up in the meadow either. Next time I hear gunshots, I'm going up there myself and check." Didn't make me feel any better. It's nice to be riding along with my dad on a warm September day, though, breeze coming in one window and floating out the other. When we get up as far as our driveway, I decide I'll go on across the bridge with Dad this time and help deliver the mail on the road where Judd lives. Figure this will give Judd a second chance to say something about Shiloh if he's got a grudge building up inside him. Maybe if we can talk it out, things will be okay. But when we get up to his trailer, an old brown and white thing with rust stains on the roof, Judd's nowhere to be seen. We know he's not out hunting because all 3 of his dogs are chained. They go crazy when they see the Jeep. Leap and growl and bark, teeth showing, chains jerking. I put the mail in Judd's box and watch the door, thinking maybe he'll hear all the ruckus and come out. His truck's there, but there's no sign of him, living or dead, and I wonder if he's even fed his dogs this morning. "Judd don't work Saturdays?" I ask, as the Jeep starts up again. "Think he works every other Saturday, something like that." What kind of work does he do? I try to think about what kind of a job would be right for a man like Judd Travers. Rattlesnake handler, maybe? Alligator wrestler? Mechanic, says Dad. Works on trucks and cars down at Whelan's garage. I hear he's good at it. I guess a man can be good at some things and horrible at others. Good with cars and truck engines and bad with dogs and people. Dad's route ends a couple miles down at the ford where water comes over the road, and that's where we turn around and head back. After we come back across the bridge by the old mill, I take our mail and zucchini bread and head on up to the house. Cause Dad a couple of hours of deliveries yet. Because Dad's got a couple deliveries yet. And here comes Shiloh to meet me, legs flying out from under him. I pinch off a piece of the zucchini bread, and he gulps it right down. That dog will eat anything. You give him a piece of bread made of spinach and Brussels sprouts, and he'd gobble that down too, beg for more. I go up the driveway beside Shiloh. I'm thinking how he's always in a good mood, always ready to jump to his feet and do any fool thing you got in your mind. Doesn't matter how tired he is or how hot or cold it is outside. He'll be right there at the door waiting for you. You treat a dog right, and he's your friend for life. Better natured than sisters, that's for sure. Dara Lynn gets up some mornings and looks like she's about to break your arm. Even look at her cross-eyed. I eat lunch. Ma's got some turkey sandwiches waiting before I head over to Doc Murphy's to do my work. What'd you do at David's? Dara Lynn asked me, mouth full of bread. All kinds of stuff, I tell her. Did Mrs. Howard have a good dinner? Asked Ma. I'm only 11, but I know when your Ma asks about someone else's cooking, you got to be real careful. The chocolate pie was good, I say, and Becky and Dara Lynn both start squealing about why don't we ever have chocolate pie. But the rest wasn't anything special, I finish. What was it? Mothers have to know the details. Some kind of meat, I guess. Some kind of vegetables, I tell her. She don't look too interested after that. Shiloh follows me down towards Doc Murphy's. And before we get to the end of the driveway, though, I see Judd's pickup coming across the bridge on the right. It gets down at the bottom of our driveway and stops. Thump, thump, thump. Hard to tell something if it's your heart beating or your knees knocking, or both of them together. It'd be cowardly to turn around and go back now, so I just keep walking. Shiloh's don't, though. He stops dead still. Hey, Marty. Judd opens the truck door and puts one foot out. Come on down here. I don't know whether to go or not. What do you want? I call. Want to show you something. I don't want much to go, but then Judd gets out and walks behind his truck. He's pointing to the back, so I go down and walk over. Look there, says Judd. Someone's taken a nail or a screwdriver or something and making a long, deep scratch in the paint all the way from Judd's license plate to the door on the right-hand side. I'll give you a little whistle. You have any idea who might have done this to my truck? Judd Travers is uglier than a snake. Not face ugly, exactly, but mean ugly. He ever trying anything but mean. He ever try being anything but mean, he might not look too bad. Eyes are all bloodshot, though, and his breath, ugh. You could put your nose down inside a beer bottle. That's his smell. I shake my head. He looks at me. You think of any boys who could have done it? Nobody I know. Well, you listen around, and if you find out who scratched my truck, you tell me, here? I'll listen, I say, but I don't promise nothing. Judd gets in his pickup truck and drives off, and it's not until he's out of sight that Shiloh comes on down. Don't take a lot to prove that Judd Travers isn't the most popular person in Tyler County. The man can scare you so bad that even if you hadn't done anything, you almost wonder if you might. The kind of man you keep imagining all sorts of horrible things happening to, and then you feel guilty you enjoyed it. I'm asking myself if it's such a good idea for David and me to go sneaking around Judd's tonight. I walk on down to Doc's. He's got an office there in his house, but he don't see patients on Saturdays unless it's an emergency. His wife died 10 years ago, and he tries to keep up the grass and flowers just for her. Doc figures I owe him about $90 for the fixing up of Shiloh after he was torn up by the German Shepherd. I get $3 an hour and work 3 hours every Saturday. Worked 2 Saturdays so far, so I got 9 more to go. "How's the patient doing?" Doc says, stepping out on the porch when he sees me coming. He's a heavy man, and he grunts some when he reaches down to pet my dog. Check where he's sewed him up. One of Doc's friends is a veterinarian down in St. Mary's, and Doc checked with him after Shiloh was hurt to make sure he was doing right. "Looks good, Shiloh," he says. "You keep out of trouble now." Today, Doc wants some bushes transplanted from one side of his yard to another, and then they'll get more sun. He digs a while, and then I dig. Shiloh just lies on the grass in the shade, smiling at us, mouth open, and we laugh the way he's watching us work. "That dog sure has an easy life," Doc Murphy says, stopping to wipe the sweat off his forehead. I'm wondering what kind of life he would have had if I'd have turned him back over to Judd. If Shiloh would have even be alive at all. The way Judd used to kick him and starve him every time he runs off. Can't help thinking of the 3 dogs Judd's got left, all chained up, yelping and snarling at one another. Doc begins digging again, and I hold on to the bushes on the bush so it doesn't fall over while he works at getting the tip of the shovel down under the roots. "You suppose the rest of Judd's dogs are ruined for good?" I ask. I mean, once you chain a dog and he turns mean, is he going to be mean forever? "That I don't know, Marty," Doc says. "Sometimes I figure there's not all that much difference between a man and an animal. One has 2 legs, the other 4. Maybe that's the sum of it. I suppose some dogs and some people are born with meanness in them. Something in their bloodline, maybe." He gives a final grunt, and the dirt ball lifts up. But a lot fewer than folks believe. I suspect my own guess is that a little kindness will fix almost anything with man or beast, but I wouldn't swear to it. I lift the last forsythia bush up out of the ground and carry it over to the hole we dug for it on the other side of Doc's driveway. We work together to set that bush straight. Doc is going to a symphony concert in Wheeling this evening, so I finish the bushes myself, packing in loose dirt in each of the holes, making sure the bush is standing up straight. Feel like an old man when I'm through. My back's so sore. I head back home at 4, and Ma says I stink. Got to take a bath before David gets here, so I'm smelling sweet as a rose when David's mom drives up to our house. Shiloh never barks at the Howard's car. He's always glad to see David. "You just have a bath or something?" David says, seeing my hair all slicked down. "Sweet as a rose," I say, drawing out the so, and I stick my armpit in his face. "Smell?" He laughs and pushes me away. Ma comes out to talk with Mrs. Howard a few minutes, while David and I take turns on the bag swing we got hanging from our beech tree. David climbs up the maple tree close by and sits out on a limb. Then I take the gunny sack hanging by a rope from the beech tree and toss it to him, high as I can throw. David's catching the rope, wraps his legs around the sack stuffed with straw, then slides right off the branch, hanging on to the rope for dear life. Swings, swoops down towards the ground and way up in the air on the other side. "Whee!" yells David. I should have been having a good time, but I keep thinking about what David and me are going to do later. He don't have any sisters or brothers, so he thinks Dara Lynn and Becky are cute, and they put on a show of cuteness and almost makes your stomach sick. Becky's got to sing the ABCs for him, only she always forgets what comes after the LMNO, so she starts all over again. Then Dara Lynn got to get in the act, and after she shows David Howard all her scabs and bruises, she asks him jokes. "How do you keep a bull from charging?" she says, grinning. "I don't know," says David. "Take away his credit card," Dara Lynn shrieks. She don't even know what a credit card is. At supper, Ma got apple dumplings for dessert, and we pour milk over them while they're still warm. David runs his finger through the bottom of his dish when he's done to get every last bit. "What are you two boys planning to do this evening?" Ma says as she clears the table. "Fool around outside," I tell her. I don't have to tell David Howard what he wants to do. I'm sorry. I don't have to ask David Howard what he wants to do. David's got it all worked up in his head like a detective story, I can tell. And soon as we close the screen, he turns to me and asks, "How long till we go to get to Judge Travers?" The end of chapter 4.